Hey, hey, everybody. It's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan. And first and foremost, Schwamos, thank you so much for recording the space that David Schwartz popped into the other night on X. Yeah, he was talking for about an hour. And if you want to listen to the space in its entirety, Schwamos has it on his YouTube channel. What I've done here is taken the clips that I thought stood out the most, brought it to about 16 minutes, and you're going to hear David touch on the subjects of the hack, that would be Chris Larson's wallet. Also, the AMM, there is a code bug issue. And yeah, he was a little depressed that actually something slipped by. And also, there's a quote out there that he says is really has been taken out of context, and that is XRP can't be cheap. He explains that. He explains that it's all about moving an asset in the market with liquidity. Low liquidity is a little bit of a problem. And Bitcoin right now, their liquidity has made it the most excellent for payments. And then Dark Horse asks the big question about PolySign. Now, at the end, David explains that Ripple is not going to stop doing payments, but they are placing other bets. They really love tokenization. They are focused on multiple chains with smart contracts, and that would be to start with the EVM chain. And yeah, he admits they didn't quite get the traction that they wanted from just payments, so they have to go broader. In the NFT space, they felt they were a little bit too late. And with CBDCs, they've found themselves a little bit too early. So that calculating the market is most difficult for timing. Anyway, I do hope you enjoy. And Schwamos, thanks again for this great catch. All right, everybody, until next time, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
I'm in Dubai right now for the Satoshi Roundtable, and I debated whether we heard about when we heard about the hack. I debated whether I should go to Dubai or not, stay to manage it. But, obviously I have an amazing team, so yeah, that these things are always like getting punched in the gut. It's just one of those things that just makes me wonder whether sometimes when I get a little reflective whether all this is worth it when stuff like that happens. It's just really painful. But the hacks and the thefts and the scams, they just really there's a couple of things in this space that make me wonder sometimes whether it's worth it. It's just depressing. And I know to some extent it's industry growing pains, but if there's anything that would make me wonder whether all this is worth it, those kinds of things, just sometimes I get a little, I know all the good that's being done in the space, and I don't know, just sometimes and the theft really just to me personally, they kind of feel like getting punched in the stomach.
Money GCC also asked the question of why hasn't Ripple put all of its the founders' wallets actually in Metacat? Is that a possibility for us?
Yeah, that would have been a good thing, or some model that was just a little bit more secure. There's a combination of different problems. One of them is wallets that were created when the value of cryptocurrency was very, very small. um Wallets that have been around for a very long time. At one point, there was a time when, like, 10 Bitcoin or a million XRP was like very small, was not a significant amount of money. And so some of these wallets, you have wallets that were created a long time ago. Another problem that you have is wallets that were created and then have been used for various different purposes, and there isn't necessarily a complete control over where the private key has been, or who created the wallet in the first place, because it's been used for a very long time. Obviously, these are not good security practices. Obviously, we all know all the problems with these security practices. It is a huge drag on adoption in the entire cryptocurrency space that people have to manage their own private keys somehow. Multi-sign is a really good tool. It's just not super easy to use. And we've been trying to think creatively about other options for technologies that could provide more protection. One idea that we were bouncing around just a couple days ago was an idea of being able to have so you can already have a master key and a regular key for an account, and you can limit what the regular key can do a little bit, like the regular key can't disable the master key, but the master key could disable the regular key. We were thinking about being able to have the master key like set a delay, so a transaction has to be submitted, let's say 24 hours before it clears, and the regular key could submit transactions with a delay and then release them after the delay had passed. And then the master key could revoke the regular key, change the regular key, or cancel transactions while they were in that 24-hour delay and enable or disable, the delay feature. So we're thinking about things like that to give people more control to protect against these kinds of risks. But physical wallets, like hardware wallets, are definitely a good form of. I highly recommend them. Paper backups, cold wallets, I definitely highly recommend. Um, and I think also just if you have large amounts of cryptocurrency or amounts that are important to you, periodically review like how long have you had this wallet? How many people have had access to it? Maybe it's time to create a new wallet and move the funds out of the old one just because of the passage of time. Um, Over a passage of time, if you have some credentials on a laptop, you don't know who's had access to that laptop or where you've left it or something like that. It's not that difficult to create a new account and move funds. But I think it's a huge problem for adoption. It's something we're gonna have to solve. I think the other side of that problem is like if I die, how does my crypto get to my wife or my kids or, whoever I want it to get to? It's a similar problem of like, do my private keys die with me? And we don't have good answers to that problem either.
I'm having a hard time with one thing here, and that is that Ripple would spend so much money on purchasing a custody solution provider and not as the first course of action to show other institutional players that custody works, build their own, corporate custody solution and make their executives with large holdings put put it into custody.
Yeah,
I
in
mean, doesn't
retrospect,
that
we
sit?
certainly should have done that, right? In retrospect, that seems like that would have been a really well, it's really easy to come up with an idea after you see like, yeah, I obviously that would have been a really good thing to do. I mean, I certainly think you might see us doing something like that very,
So so
sooner rather than later. A little depressing that despite all of the checks done by us and so many other people and so many other groups, that something slipped by. I think that just speaks to how complicated the technologies that we're working on are. The bug involves interaction with very low level code in the XRP ledger, the way the XRP ledger stores ledger objects and the structure that it uses to represent them. We had third-party auditors. We ran a test network. Um, we do audits of the code by different groups inside the company. Like I said, there was an independent third-party audit. Obviously, other people look at the code too. I'm not sure. I haven't found out yet exactly what process caught this. It's kind of strange that the timing of when it was caught, because most of the testing that we do prior to even including the code in a public release. But it looks like it's an unfortunate issue that slipped through. I think a reasonable response is to make sure not to set AMM fees at or below 1 basis point until that can be fixed. So consider it a sort of a soft limitation that just to ensure that it doesn't. I know it just reduces performance a little bit. It doesn't cause anything. On the bright side, it like doesn't cause anybody to lose money, which is good. Because if it caused people to lose money, then we'd have to, or if it was exploitable, then we'd have to rethink like should we tell people to immediately like vote no, and people would have decided that on their own too. And it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if some people switched their vote to no or thought about it, like obviously just to make sure that they have some time to make sure that their impact of this isn't greater than expected. But it looks like it's not a good reason to vote no on the amendment. We'll just impose a soft constraint, like people don't create AMM pools with fees below, just slightly over 1 basis point.
In the past, I believe you stated that XRP cannot be cheap. What did you mean by that? Did you mean like dollar amounts?
As far as what I meant, so there's a specific quote that kind of annoying to me because it's been
Yeah,
repeated by many people taking out of
like
context.
like
But let me
me.
be, yeah. So to be very clear about what I was saying in the quote that I was talking about, um, the cost of XRP doesn't directly impact the cost of a payment. So in other words, if I want to buy something from you and the value of that thing is, let's say it's the equivalent to $1 million US. Like the amount of XRP, the price of XRP is going to determine if I'm going to pay you an XRP. The price of XRP will determine how much XRP I have to give you, but it won't make the payment any cheaper or more expensive, right? If the price of XRP is very high, I'll give you fewer XRP, but it'll cost me more to get them. And if the price is low, I'll have to give you a lot of XRP, but I paid less for each one. So there's no such thing as like cheap XRP making payments cheap or expensive XRP making payments expensive. And that's the point that I was trying to make there, that the price of XRP doesn't determine whether payments are cheap or expensive. But what does happen is, in general, the higher the sort of market cap of the asset, it's not so much the price per unit, but the market cap does impact the ability to use the asset for payment. So for example, let's say I wanted to buy a house that was worth $1 million USD and I wanted to use Bitcoin to do it, right? Back when Bitcoin was like $100, you couldn't realistically use Bitcoin to pay $1 million because the market didn't have enough liquidity. Like if I wanted to buy $1 million worth of Bitcoin back then, I would have pushed the price up. And then when I gave the $1 million worth of Bitcoin to you, let's say to buy your house, when you go to sell those, you would push the price down. So you would take a loss on the buy and I would take a loss on the sell, and that would make the payment suck for both of us. But today, I can buy $1 million worth of Bitcoin without moving the market, and you can sell $1 million worth of Bitcoin without moving the market. So the higher, it's not so much the price, it's more the market cap, but really it's not quite like a higher price tends to mean a higher market cap, and a higher market cap tends to mean higher liquidity. It's really more like the sort of availability of liquidity that determines how easily you can use an asset for payments when you don't have closed loops. But what is meaningful is how expensive or how much it cost me to sort of convert. And especially for big payments, like if you want to make $1 million payment, it has to be that $1 million buy or sell of XRP doesn't move the market a lot, because if you move the market, it's always going to be against you, right? Moving the market always means it's going to cost you more to buy, or you're going to get less when you sell. So if you're moving the market, it's going to effectively tax. As the Bitcoin ecosystem has grown, Bitcoin has become better and better for payments. And the irony is people are using it less and less, but it's not because it's not suitable for payments. I have to say, one of the things that perplexes me the most about this space is that people are not using digital assets for payments, even though they work for payments better than they ever have. And that's just that's not any one particular obviously, there's some reason. Bitcoin, you might argue, well, the transaction fees, it's kind of slow. Ethereum, you might argue, well, payments it's a little expensive, it's a little slow. But even other blockchains that are fast, not just the XRP Ledger, they've not gotten as much traction as I would like to see them get in the payment space. And that's the problem that Ripple has been like working the hardest to solve for, since 2015, when we decided to focus on payments. We've been trying to sort of get, payments into the cryptocurrency space. And it's still baffling to me that we haven't been more, that nobody in the space has been more successful than they have. Obviously, I wouldn't say that we've been unsuccessful, but it's just baffling to me that there isn't broader adoption. Like, why aren't people using cryptocurrencies for remittances more than it's kind of puzzling to me.
Do you think people are not using XRP for a payment because it's cheap?
I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, like, whether it's cheap or expensive, if I want to pay you $100 worth of XRP, I can get $100 worth of XRP for $100. I can sell it. I can send it to you. There's enough liquidity that I can buy it and you can sell it without moving the market.
David, can you tell us a bit about what's going on with Polysign right now? It's gone really quiet, and we'd really like to know what's going on with Polysign.
I really wish I could, but unfortunately,
No.
unfortunately, I'm getting in trouble if I say anything.
No, don't get in trouble.
It's funny. I just mentioned. I think I said, a thank you to some folks at Ripple who Ripple's an investor in Polysign. And so I said thank you to people at Ripple who've been, helpful as we're trying to manage what's going on. And I heard from someone at our legal team that created speculation that, that like maybe Ripple was going to buy Polysign, or maybe that Ripple was going to invest, going to lead another funding round that would invest more money or something. And, I'm like, oh man, I probably shouldn't have said that. And all I just said was, I just want to thank people who really are like putting in an effort to make things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
David,
I probably should.
David, I want to see Ripple in Algeria.
I wish I could be completely transparent. We're big believers in payments. We're not going to stop. We're not going to stop doing payments. That's not going to happen. However, again, And I think these other use cases are extremely important, and I think you're going to see us producing. We're very interested in real world asset tokenization. We're very interested in an ecosystem of multiple chains with asset portability across chains. So you can have chains that can provide smart contract capability. You can have greater throughput. You can have chains that have data storage for NFTs without having to try to build one chain that's good for all purposes. So I think the answer is yes to everything except like reducing our emphasis on payments. I don't think you're going to see that from us. But I think you will see us looking into other use cases, metaverse use cases, NFT use cases. I think we're going to have to broaden. I think the next big bet for us is probably a sort of multi-chain ecosystem, starting with the EVM compatible chain, which will be nice because currently, like if you're in the XRP ecosystem, we basically just don't have a smart contract solution, and so having one that's industry standard will make it easier. Like you want to hire people to build, hiring people who know EVM, is very easy. So I think you're going to see us placing other bets and encouraging growth in other parts of the ecosystem. I think the answer is we haven't gotten the traction we wanted just from payments. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep trying, but it also means that we have to be broader. Way back in 2015, when Ripple decided to focus on payments, our thinking was that everything else could be done by everybody else. But if we were going to get institutional payments in the cryptocurrency space, someone was going to have to build products that were regulatory compliant, that were well supported, that could withstand third party audits. It was going to have to be something that was done by a company. It couldn't happen organically. So we focused on institutional payments. But we're a lot bigger than now than we were in 2015. We have a lot more resources. We have a lot more employees. We have a lot more technology, and we can do way more than one thing at a time. And so I think you're going to. The fight I always used to have with Stephen Thomas, the former CTO, was, okay, we can do more than one thing, but can we do 7 things? Can we do 10 things? Can we do 3 things? I think you're going to see us increasing the number of things that we're doing and offering a sort of ecosystem of tools that that will support all of those different use cases. Metaverse use cases, I'm VR use cases, I'm not completely sold on yet. AI, I'm kind of I think that's definitely going to be something, but the question is what, and I don't think we know what yet. So the other thing that's a little challenging is to decide when is too early and when is too late. I think with NFTs, like Ripple decided that we cared about NFTs a little bit too late, and I think maybe with CBDCs we may have decided a little bit too early. And so I think it's going to take some process of deciding how hard we want to commit. Like if we decided we wanted to make a major commitment to metaverse use cases, I'm not even sure what that would look like right now. Like I'm sure there's plenty of people who would love to tell me like what they think the metaverse use cases are, but it's very hard. It's hard to know what's right. And so you have to sort of calibrate. You can't wait until somebody else makes $1 billion in a field. That's basically what we did with NFTs. We're like, we don't think NFTs are a thing. We wait and we're like, oh shoot, somebody just made $1 billion in the NFT space. We probably should pay attention to it. And obviously that's a little bit too late. But if you jump on too early, then you're following every fad, and that's very stressful for engineering teams to spend months building something like, oh, actually that turns out that's not a thing. And then you tell them to, there's nothing worse for an engineer when they put their heart and soul into a project and then like that project doesn't become a thing. So calibrating is challenging.